news once again in terms of injuries, because the season is over for one of the most important players at Arsenal, Kai Havertz. So after suffering many injuries, especially in the attacking department in the recent weeks and months, one more for Arsenal. It's a really bad news for the club, for the coaching staff, for the teammates, because when you lose a player like Kai Havertz, who was considered absolutely crucial, obviously, in terms of contribution, game time, was a really important player for Mikel Arteta. Well, you can understand how bad is that news, especially coming after the January transfer window, when Arsenal wanted to bring in a new striker. We still have in our memory the quotes from Mikel Arteta several times saying, we are trying, we are working on it, we are trying to bring in a new striker. Why not? Why Arsenal didn't sign a new striker? Basically, because they didn't want to overpay for players that were not part of their shortlist for the summer, because the main focus has always been the summer transfer window. Then they had the injury of Gabriel Jesus, the injuries of Bukayo, Saka, and then also Gabriel Martinelli in the recent days, now Kai Havertz. But at some point in January, Arsenal understood that they needed to do something. They were trying, so calling Red Bull Leipzig for Benjamin Sesko, but Leipzig saying no chance for January. Arsenal didn't send any official bid because they had the feeling that it was really impossible to convince Leipzig. Imagine Newcastle with Alexander Isak, the other big name on the list of Arsenal for the summer. So these two remain the big names for the summer. We will touch on that in a moment, but for January it was not possible to proceed, and Arsenal decided not to attack because it was seen as a really complicated topic. Sesko and even more Alexander Isak. For Arsenal, there was a possibility. Only Watkins, they had a bid rejected by Aston Villa, a very tense situation, and also bad luck because Aston Villa on the same week sold John Duran to Al Nassr, so they didn't need any money anymore. They made big money with John Duran, 85 million euros, and also included, and also the manager of Aston Villa, Unai Emery, speaking in public but also in private with the management, said very clearly, only Watkins has to stay. We can't sell both strikers now, even if we have good opportunities. It's impossible to find a good replacement on the market, and so the idea at Aston Villa was very clear: only Watkins, untouchable. That's why for Arsenal it became complicated. They had the opportunity to go for some striker was not part of their initial shortlist for January or for the summer. For example, as I told you in the past few weeks, Alvaro Morata was offered to Arsenal as an opportunity on loan with an obligation to buy, but Arsenal said no. They considered that possibility, then they said no. There were also other opportunities at the beginning of the market. For example, Randal Colomwani from Paris Saint-Germain. He's doing fantastic at Juventus, already 5 goals scored with the Italian side. Why Arsenal didn't attack the deal? Because they had the feeling they couldn't offer a regular starting spot to Randal Colomwani. Similar to Matistel, Arsenal were not in a position to go to the player and say, okay, in the next 4 months, you will play basically 90% of the games, start 90% of the games. At that point, Arsenal didn't have that sort of power, and so Colomwani decided to go to Juventus, also because Juventus can offer him the opportunity to play, and he's a really important player for Thiago Motta. So Arsenal never really entered the race for Colomwani for that reason. So what happened? They decided not to sign anyone, instead of overpaying for other players, but now the situation is complicated. Kai Havertz out until the end of the season, Gabriel Martinelli, Bukayo Saka out for weeks, Gabriel Jesus out until the end of the season. Now they have available the young superstar, who is going to extend the contract because the contacts are very positive, Ethan Nwaneri. So Arsenal are working on that, but obviously he's a very young kid. He's doing fantastic, but still a very young kid. Leandro Trossard, another topic for Arsenal. And then, of course, we know they can complete the attacking department with Raheem Sterling. Despite the rumors in January, Arsenal were never sending a player back to Chelsea. That was never considered a possibility, but still a complicated situation for Arsenal. What happens now after these injuries? Of course, Arsenal were already working on signings for the summer. Now, striker, the two names remain, the two obsession of Arsenal and Mikel Arteta. Alexander Isak, but at the moment we have to respect Newcastle, and Newcastle have still no intention to consider Alexander Isak as a player who can leave in the summer. Then we will see, we will follow the story, but at the moment it's not that easy to consider Alexander Isak as a easy target for the summer, absolutely. So Arsenal will be there, Arsenal will try, but at the moment it's not guaranteed yet. And the other name is Benjamin Sesko, the other top name on the list of Arsenal. In this case, it's completely different because Leipzig said no for January, but my understanding is that in the summer the situation will be completely different, so the doors can be open. Also, Chelsea are keeping close eye to the situation of Benjamin Sesko. There are several clubs monitoring the player, but Arsenal have already made fresh contacts in January. From what I heard, also in February, after the closing of the transfer window, Arsenal confirming their interest in Benjamin Sesko, keeping the contacts active. So these two names for the number 9 remain the dream targets. Of course, one would join, and Arsenal for sure will be ready in the summer. And then also a winger, because it's something that Mikel Arteta already wanted last summer. Was not possible to find the right player. They signed Raheem Sterling on loan, but in the summer the expectation is for Arsenal to bring in an important winger too for Mikel Arteta. I wanted to complete on this topic, guys, also for William Saliba, because I received many questions from football fans in the last 3-4 days after the reports coming from France on William Saliba and Real Madrid. Guys, there is no doubt that people internally at Real Madrid see William Saliba as a superstar, a fantastic defender. So at Real Madrid, they obviously, I would say, this is one of the best defenders in the world. They really appreciate William Saliba. It's also important to say that someone internally at Real Madrid considers Saliba, we can say, the Bellingham of the defenders. So a top player for present, but also future. A player who can be perfect to build the future. But in this story, I think, guys, in the recent days, there was not so much respect for Arsenal. We have to remind that Arteta and people in the
recuperate, recharge and go again as Arsenal's only remaining centre-forward option. But then we got a worrying update, as Sami Mokbel confirmed that Arsenal striker Havertz had suffered a worrying muscular injury while training in Dubai, the issue being hamstring related, full diagnosis unconfirmed, with even the reliable team analytics confirming the injury in Dubai was caused during a high-pressing drill. The third hamstring injury that Arsenal had suffered this season. First Bukayo, Saka, then Gabriel Martinelli. Surely this couldn't be any worse. Well, David Ornstein confirmed the news that no Arsenal fan wanted to hear, that Kai Havertz now set to miss the rest of the season for injury, with the Arsenal forward suffering from a torn hamstring during training in our camp in Dubai. It's unclear if the player will require surgery, but the focus is now getting fit for the 2025-26 campaign, which now means that Arsenal have 4 forwards out injured. Both centre forwards Havertz and Jesus out for the season, with Bukayo Saka out until March, and likewise Gabriel Martinelli. At this point, you have to ask yourself the question, is this season cursed? Or is there a deeper meaning behind the injuries? With 3 of the 4 injuries being hamstring ones. In terms of Saka and Havertz, they were known for being injury-free. Ironmans over the past few seasons always available, but after constantly being played in very high-intensity environments, not only Arsenal attack on a consistent basis, but also Arsenal track back. In terms of Havertz this year, when compared to both Haaland and Salah, he actually has the same amount of games in all competitions. But the difference is responsibilities, having covered 123 kilometers this year in the Premier League, second to only Bruno Guimaraes, a centre-forward putting in midfield covering numbers. With next to no rotation whatsoever, Arsenal were always playing with danger, having played 90 minutes 19 times in the Premier League this season, 120 minutes against United in the FA Cup, then 90 minutes 5 times in the Champions League, as well as the full 180 against Newcastle. Kai has been an Iron Man, he has always been reliable. Despite all the questions over his ability, his constant availability must be respected. But now out for the rest of the season, we have to ask some serious questions, particularly towards the Arsenal ball. After Mikel Arteta made it clear that he wanted a brand new striker in January, chasing Benjamin Sesko and then Ollie Watkins, reports claim that money was even available, but the Arsenal board, Tim Lewis and Richard Garlick, as well as our interim sporting director Jason Ito, were against making any short-term moves, a mentality that is now costing Arsenal badly. Fighting for a title now with only 3 forwards available, that being Trossard, Sterling and a 17-year-old Ethan Nwaneri, up against a Liverpool side that had the informed Mo Salah, Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, Diego Jota, and of course Darwin Núñez. Mikel Arteta now finds himself in a very difficult scenario, and it also opens a longer-term question. For a manager that has so much ambition in terms of winning titles, that has squeezed nearly every bit out of this squad over the past couple of seasons, got us fighting for a title, despite spending less than Tottenham, City, United and Chelsea since arriving in 2019. This is where the ownership has to be careful. If the board is unable to match Mikel Arteta's ambitions, how long will he be able to continue? In a window where we've just seen Man City spend £200 million, Arsenal is scared to spend an extra 20 on Ollie Watkins. Is that ambition shown towards Mikel Arteta? Will that see sustained success even if we win a title? And are Arsenal getting too comfortable? For me, this all points towards the demand for a new sporting director. Despite talk about the internal people being happy with Jason Ito, what Arsenal need is a Mikel Arteta behind the scenes that is able to do the genius work there as well. So according to the reliable Sami Mokbel, if the club decides to hire a new sporting director externally, Roberto Larbi will be the perfect fit in every aspect. The current director of Real Sociedad set to leave them at the end of the season. There's a whole host of top directors across Europe, and for Arsenal it's about recruiting the best of the best, matching their excellence on the field with a stern man behind the scenes. But what about the season itself though? With both our strikers is out until the end of the season, the logical answer is Mikel Arteta turns to Leandro Trossard, a player that has played in the false line in the past, to a very high level as well, with the option to Raheem Sterling on the left-hand side and Nwaneri on the right. According to some other reports though, Mikel could also turn to Ethan Nwaneri as a number 9 option, having spoken early in the season of Ethan potentially being a long-term number 9. With our top 4 goal scorers injured, it leaves Nwaneri as our highest goal scorer left available, followed by Gabriel Magalhaes, Leandro Trossard and Declan Rice. As Simon Collins says, Mikel Arteta is not the first coach at Arsenal to think Nwaneri could become a number 9, with those at the under 14s and under 15 level thinking the exact same. What Ethan is a natural goal threat, a maverick in the final third able to create separation inside the box, to fire off shots on a consistent basis. With no Saka until potentially April, Martinelli out for a month as well, it's a lot of pressure on a 17-year-old, but as the saying goes, pressures make diamonds. You've also had some more rogue reports saying Mikel Arteta could use Mikel Merino as a potential centre forward. This is something that I'm going to have to see before I believe, but the report claims he could be seen as a Marouane Fellaini type, a player Mikel Arteta played with during his time at Everton, a target man in the final third at 6'3", who as we've seen can thrive in the air. Merino is a player that whenever he plays for Arsenal does get into goal scoring positions, but having seen him miss numerous big chances, this for me looks more like fan fiction. Regardless though, Arsenal find themselves in a very difficult scenario. Mikel Arteta is going to have to work some magic, so comment down below your potential solutions. With Havertz out until the end of the season, who do you believe will be Arsenal's go-to centre forward? We've also got an update though on Takehiro Tomiyasu. Yes my friends, he does still play for Arsenal Football Club, having only made 1 appearance all season, off the bench against Southampton in a game he was also injured in. Now according to Sammy Mokbel, there are emerging fears over Tomiyasu's troublesome knee injuries, with doctors believed to be considering sending the player for another operation in efforts to cure the issue. A procedure will likely rule Tomiyasu out for a significant period of time. A player that has had 3 different knee injuries in the same season, missing next to every single Arsenal game. It only makes sense for the player to get this knee operation, solve what is clearly a long-term issue, to not only help the player recover, but also protect his long-term health. For Tomiyasu, it's a very hard one for Arsenal fans. A player we've seen when he's available be so reliable, a versatile option able to play left back, right back and centre back. But having signed a brand new contract only back in March 2024, a 2-year deal until 2026. At the time he was wanted to buy of course Bayern Munich, but also said no. But over an Arsenal career where he's never been reliably available, constant calf injuries, knee injuries galore, at one point you have to be honest and a bit ruthless. Come this summer, I wonder what Arsenal do. With the reports about Zinchenko and Kiwior also set to leave, will they be open to offers to Takehiro Tomiyasu? With the bigger question being what teams are going to be after him. But moving on to a Sammy Mokbel update. After all the doom and gloom with the Kai Havertz news coming out of nowhere, on top of the news of Gabriel Martinelli, it has shown a clear issue in Arsenal squad planning. Having only invested £70 million in the summer, then nothing in January. One thing's become even more clear that come summer 2025, there will need to be a...
But their injury list up front is, you know, something that is really concerning, because Gabriel Martinelli is out with a hamstring injury. Gabriel Jesus is out for the season with an ACL injury. Bukayo Saka has had a long-term hamstring injury. He may well be back next month. But if Kai Havertz does miss the rest of the season, then you are scratching your head and thinking, what is Mikel Arteta going to do? What options does he really have? Now, I think we just have to wait until Friday for Arteta's news conference before their game against Leicester on Saturday for him to give us an update and confirm one way or the other whether Havertz is in fact out for the whole season.
Well, Cabby, stay there, because I'm delighted to say that former Arsenal striker Alan Smith waiting patiently to speak with us now. And Alan, I mean, I imagine this is just the worst news for Arsenal fans. Another injury